It is my absolute pleasure to be joined today by author Matthew Blackburn. He is the author of the newly released book, Daughter of Castellan. And so, Matthew, tell us about this book.
Happy to. So this is a fantasy novel. When I was writing it, I was just thinking to myself, is there any sort of like introduction to fantasy that someone could have, like maybe younger readers trying to get into it, like they don't want to go full Lord of the Rings, or they don't want to go on the big epic scale of like a Sanderson novel. And so when I first started writing this, it started out as a children's novel, like children's fantasy novel, similar to um, the Chronicles of Narnia. But then as the story built and continued, and the world got deeper, the tone got a little bit more serious. But I knew going in that it was that these characters would be, well, they would be, and I wanted it to be sort of a quest similar to the Lord of the Rings, but on a much smaller, less complex scale. Um, I also knew that I wanted it to be similar to Narnia in that there would be Christian themes to it, and if you read it, there some of it might be a little on the nose, but other parts of it, it's a little subtle. But yeah, it was meant to be sort of like an introduction to fantasy for people trying to get into it. Like I don't really understand fantasy. I don't know what the Lord of the Rings is. I don't know what Game of Thrones and all that is. And so you know it was an introduction. Okay, so this is sort of like your typical fantasy novel. It's got a map. It's got all this different lore to it, and then there's two chapters in it that are like stories within stories. And so I think the readers will enjoy that, and you know want to keep reading and be part of this world that they read, and it's like an escape from the world they live in right now. So
Those are my favorite types of books. I mean, like the Lord of the Rings and those types of things. I mean, those are Chronicles of Narnia. Those are some of my favorite. And it sounds like there's really something for everyone in this book. What inspired you to write this book?
I've always sort of dabbled with writing. I started as early as middle school. I would just pull up a Google Doc and put some stuff down, like, okay, this is what I'm thinking of. This is, what I see in my head. But in terms of storytelling, I've always, wanted to. I've always had this thing where I come up with characters, I put them in this world, and then I try to see what happens with them. And so that also coincides with a dream I've had of having something that came from my mind in a physical way, whether that's words on a page or images on a screen. Um, but on top of that, I've always been a reader. And so the books I've read, Lord of the Rings, Dune, and other authors like King and Sanderson, um, you know, reading them really excites the mind and excites people when they read it. And so, like, I want to do that. And I have these, so I take the characters I've made in the past, stories I've come up with, and I explore them. And so, uh, yeah, that's about it. And just wanting to create something that leaves a lasting impression, um, and that might have readers coming back for more.
And I love that. And now you're a published author and have a book to show for it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today about you, your book, the message behind the book? Anything else you'd like to share with the audience today?
I mean, I guess there's several messages you could take away from it. I mean, in terms of what happens to one character at a certain point, but um, back to the Christian themes that are apparent in it. One that I think there's two that I think you can take away from it. One is um, never lose doubt, or not never. Don't have doubt. Like, don't doubt yourself, and don't doubt what's going on and who's in control. Um, and then the second one is you're never too far gone to have a change. Like there's nothing that you can do or can do that will stop you from being a better person.
I love that. And those are two very powerful messages I think the world needs to hear today. So you have been an absolute joy to talk to today. And I want to let
Thank
everyone
you.
know that Daughter of Castellan is available online everywhere books are sold. Amazon, online at Barnes & Noble, Reader House, everywhere online books are sold, ebooks and paperback format. And we recommend everyone pick this up, order this book today. And Matthew, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me.